chickens. Hey, chickens. I know it's like a mundane thing, and like chickens are the entry-level farm animal, the gateway animal, if you will. But I guess as like the grocery shopper for my household, just coming out and getting a dozen eggs, a dozen organic eggs out of the coop every day. It's like somebody handed me $5 every single day. And they're colorful. This makes me so happy. So you can kind of see here they're looking a little dirty today, which it has been a little rainy, and so it's kind of muddy. Plus we need to move them to fresh ground. I've got them on this compost, scratching it up and kind of working some fertilizer into it. The key to clean chicken eggs is clean chicken feet. When they're walking in the mud, they get up in the nest box and step on the eggs and make a mess of them. It's alright, they'll wash off. I do prefer to keep them clean. Unwashed fresh farm eggs stay good on your kitchen counter for at least up to 2 weeks. And that's erring on the side of caution. Usually whenever I give them to people, I like to give them to them unwashed. That way, like if I take them in my car to town to give to somebody, or I don't have to, you know, worry about getting them refrigerated soon. But in order to leave them unwashed to give to other people, I like for them to be clean. So we end up eating the dirty eggs and giving away the clean ones because we just wash them ourselves here. And eating food that has like mud or poop on it doesn't freak us out because we live on a farm. But some people who do not live on a farm and do not deal with lots of mud and poop feel a little more squeamish about that. So check this out. Do you see all these? Now some of these are weeds. Like this is a weed. But these are all volunteer sunflowers. So this is where my three sisters garden, which actually kind of morphed into two sisters and a cousin, last year was. And all of these are sunflowers which reseeded, and they're just amongst the garlic. Now, I'm probably gonna get my like long-handled little rake cultivator tool out here and get all this grass up and get a nice new layer of mulch down. But I'm heavily considering just leaving the sunflowers growing amongst the garlic and onions because I think it'll probably be fine. This is funny. Y'all see this? These are potatoes that are coming up from what was left behind last year. Oh, look at these babies. Hey. Oh, bottle babies always want more bottles. Don't believe them. They're not starving. They're eating plenty. Why are you so cute? You know, I met a lot of little children at the book signing that told me how much they loved Mac, Mercy, and Pearl. We love them too. Check out the Jerusalem artichokes. Isn't this wild? Very interesting. Speaking of potatoes growing and sunflowers, I've begun to notice the tiniest little bits of sprouting here from the potatoes that we planted. I guess it's been about a week ago now, so that's good. And back here on the back, I'm actually gonna sow all of this and cutting sunflowers. If you are catching this vlog and you didn't see my video earlier this week, this is your friendly neighborhood gardener reminding you to check your 10-day forecast because there is kind of a late cold front coming through a lot of states which are technically past their estimated last frost dates, and a lot of people have already started to plant their gardens out. So if you have frost tender stuff in your garden, you're gonna need to throw some cover over it if it's gonna get down below freezing. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can just throw a bed sheet or put a cardboard box over it, but about the time that the sun goes down, you want to make sure you get some cover over those things that can hold in some heat so you don't lose your plants in this late frost. All right, I'm just gonna leave these out here while I will remember them. I'm actually gonna take these to the greenhouse. There's another volunteer sunflower, a couple of them here amongst the weeds. That's clematis. I didn't even know that was still there. Huh, that's interesting. Hopefully the freeze doesn't come and kill these things. I'm not gonna go through the effort to cover up all these volunteers. May the strong survive. Look at all those blackberry blossoms. These bushes are covered. My greenhouse is such a mess. All right. So this is an arroz con pollo pepper, and this is a sweet scarlet dwarf tomato. So a couple of very precious viewers brought me these to the plant sale. Now the arroz con pollo is one that I had raved about years ago. It's a really interesting seasoning pepper, and I haven't grown it since then because the seeds I had really poor germination on, and then I just don't have any anymore. So that was really sweet, and I'd shared that in a video. And then also, this is a root pouch bag, which I've never tried these. I did use some Bootstrap Farmer ones once before, and I liked them. So I think it's probably pretty similar fabric bag. And here is a dwarf tomato, and I'm probably going to end up growing this back in the high tunnel with the other determinate tomatoes that I'm growing, but I'm going to keep it up in the greenhouse until this freeze passes. Weirdly, tonight's not getting anywhere near freezing, but tomorrow the high is like 75. And then it's supposed to be below freezing tomorrow night. So we're gonna have like a beautiful warm sunny day and then a cold night. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave this open just to make sure I don't accidentally leave it closed too late into the morning when it's getting sunny. But tomorrow I'll have to make sure to come out and close this up. Most of the things I have out here, like all of my leafy things, all of my roses, the strawberries, all of this stuff will be fine. And a lot of the dahlias and like the cosmos and all the things that are coming up, those are frost hinder. So a mild freeze would probably just damage the foliage, because if the low is 30, probably what that means is that like in the wee hours it might get that cold. So a very brief window of freezing is probably not going to get cold enough for long enough to actually deeply freeze the plants and kill them, but it'll probably damage them. Now the tomatoes I put in and all of these beans that volunteered, those could actually get pretty damaged. So the beans are probably just SOL, like they're climbing up. I don't know exactly how effectively I could cover these, but the tomatoes I will at least try to throw a blanket over, some frost fabric. Look at all these brassicas looking lovely. So full. Broccoli, cabbage. We're having this snap of cold weather, but even still, I can go ahead and put some seeds in the ground because they'll be fine in the soil in these freezing temperatures. It's not going to be that cold. And then they'll be sprouting once it's warm again. So I was thinking I would go ahead and just throw some seeds in, because I really, really want to plant my garden on beautiful spring days like this. And with the coming freeze, I can't plant my transplants out. So seeds it is. So these are some 782 experimental cucumbers that I got from Row 7 Seeds. This is a place, my cousin Josh actually told me about Row 7 Seeds a couple of years ago. And they do a lot of like hybrids, experimental hybrids. It's kind of interesting. I like growing new stuff. So I'm going to put these on one side of this trellis, and then I'm going to dig through here and find another kind of cucumber to put on the other side. So when I'm planting an arch trellis, the arch comes down two bottoms, and I plant on the inside. You can butt these up to the edge of your beds, or if you've got them in the ground, you can plant on the outside if you prefer. It really doesn't matter. These plants that I plant on the inside, they're just going to grow up, and they'll probably grow through and just grow all over this trellis on both sides. I like to plant on the inside because when I'm coming to pull these up, it's just easier to pull the root systems up when it's on the inside of the trellis. But it's not that much harder to pull it up from the outside. So personal preference. And I plant one plant here and one plant there. Now, I keep in mind that this foliage is going to come out to about halfway from this bed. And I will plant things all the way up to probably a few inches outside of this trellis. Anything too close to that is going to get shaded out by this cucumber plant. It's not going to grow very well. So I put 2 seeds in each one of these holes. And it doesn't matter how far apart you put them. It really doesn't matter. They're going to grow up all over here. But I put 2 seeds in each one, and I'll thin them out down to 1 plant on each side. That's not a rule. You can successfully plant these thicker than that. I've had people tell me they put as many as 5 cucumber plants on the bottom of a trellis here. And in some climates, that would probably work smashingly. It's really humid here in central Arkansas, and it gets pretty hot. And so the reason I don't plant more cucumbers per side is because my cucumbers tend to fall prey to like a powdery mildew because it's humid, it's wet, and then because it's so hot, if I plant them in too densely, they're gonna end up really competing with one another for water resources. So I just like to put 2 plants at the bottom of a trellis. That usually fills it out pretty well. I have grown 3 plants. That sometimes works too. And sometimes if I've got them and they all come up, I might just move one over so that they're spaced out where there's 3 on a trellis. But I personally don't do more than that because while it might grow really great at first, you might get a lot of fruit at first, I just don't think the longevity will be as good on those. Another thing I often get asked is like, can I plant cucumbers on the inside and the outside? So they would both be growing up. And that's really the same as planting them all on one side. That's not really giving them enough real estate to climb without crowding each other out. There's just no benefit of doing that. If you want to plant a lot, just plant them all together. But know that planting more than 2 or 3 plants on this space is definitely going to be crowding, and it may work in some climates and it may be worth the risk in the experiment, but you could potentially run into troubles with that. Alright, now in my front entryway, I asked you guys what you wanted to see growing here, and there were lots of lovely requests and votes. The #1 vote was for long purple beans, like noodle beans. I'm actually going to try a new variety. I've always done just the red noodle beans, and I'm going to do this Thai purple potted yard-long bean. And one of the things that says is that it is crisp and tender even at 20 inches. And so I thought this would be a good option. I think it's probably very similar to the noodle bean. The seeds look very similar to the noodle bean. Maybe it'll be better. We won't even consider the fact that it might not be as good. It'll be either as good or better. So I'm gonna go ahead and plant these here. Guys, y'all see this carpet of thyme next to me? It smells so good. I wish you could smell it. These massive thyme plants bring me so much joy and so much time. I don't remember the last time I had to purchase thyme. It's definitely plenty for using fresh year-round and also drying. I usually keep some dry just so if I need it, all of a sudden I don't have to walk down here to get it. When I'm planting beans at the bottom of an arch trellis, I usually put the one at the bottom of each little metal piece of the fencing. Next trellis, I think down here I'm gonna put some Kajari melons. This package has seen better days, but yeah, I'm gonna plant this trellis, and I'm gonna plant these a little heavy because I had a hard time with germination last year. So I'm probably gonna plant about 5 along the bottom and hope that 2 make it. I've been out in the garden planting stuff until dark multiple times in the last week. Another reminder, when you're direct sowing, just plant your seeds twice as deep as the seed is wide. That way you don't have to worry about them being so deep that the seed doesn't have enough energy for the seedling to break through to the soil. Also, you don't have to plant the same thing on both sides of an arch trellis. I just do that because I like the way it looks. When Benjamin was a baby, he was a toddler. He called Kajari melons Kajarli melons. And every time I think about him, every time I plant him, I think of his little sweet self, Kajarli melons. All right, so this bed is gonna require a little bit of weeding as I go because it started to come up, but I'd like to plant this whole thing in one fell swoop, and that way when everything comes up I can just mulch it all and be good to go. I don't think I'm transplanting anything into this one. I'm going to do this whole thing with seed. But on the outside of this bed here, I've got these drop dead red florist cutting sunflowers and heirloom beauties, which is like a warm mix with lots of reds and oranges. And I'm going to plant this outside side all the way down here with these. So we've been sharing bits and pieces here and there about the fact that we are moving later this year. And we actually are working on sharing more information about that. That's coming pretty soon. And once all of that is out of the bag and we've shared that all with you guys, I'll be able to speak more openly about this kind of thing. But I will tell you that this year I'm planting that whole bed with zinnias. I'm planting a lot of sunflowers in here. I'm letting a lot of things go, like the sunflowers volunteering amongst the garlic and different things like that. Now obviously we're still growing a lot of food, but I don't think I'm gonna be canning as much this summer as I have in years past. Like in years past, I've really focused on preserving as much as possible, whereas this summer that's not going to be the case as much. I'll still probably do some, but I'm shifting a little bit in my garden, and I'm really hoping to enjoy the beauty of it in a massive way, to enjoy the fresh eating of it in a massive way this last summer here. And my thought is I'm probably not going to do as much preserving, because we're kind of in the mode of realizing that the less that we have to move, the better. And again, I will share more about that when I can. But our plan has been for a while now, we have shared this, Jeremiah's always wanted to build a house. And so can't tell you yet exactly how that's gonna look, but there is gonna be a bit of a transition season. And so I am not trying to put up an entire pantry's worth full of food and then have to figure out what to do with that. So lots of flowers for my garden this summer. It's so almost dark out here. All right, it's really dark out here. The camera, it's hard to really tell. And I also got my hands super dirty getting in there, getting those weeds out. One last thing, I'm not gonna have time to finish that bed. One last thing though, before I run out of light entirely, I have these summer squash that I wanna go ahead and throw some of these seeds in a couple of places. I always put some summer squash seeds in because they just grow so fast, and it's early food. Squash takes like 50 days. So if you tuck the seeds in, you risk a little and you put them in before the last frost. I mean, I usually plant some by about middle of April, and we are eating summer squash by the end of May. And it's kind of the first food that comes in really heavy in the garden. I always try different varieties. I don't have like a real favorite. Probably if I had to choose one, the yellow custard patty pan squash, I really like that one. All squash struggles where I live. Squash bugs are really bad here. So I just plant a lot of it early in the season, and that way we can eat a whole bunch before the squash bugs come and wipe it out. So from the end of May until the end of June, we eat squash like every single day until everybody's sick of it. That way when the squash bugs inevitably come and kill it all, I'm less bummed about it. So this variety, I'm gonna go ahead and just put it in a few places in the garden. This is evidence that I am always incredibly wooed by a Poetic seed package, because this is the sun-striped summer squash from Botanical Interest, and it says, like rays of sunshine in the garden, these striped yellow squash have a distinctive appearance and a delectable flavor. There are two places in the world where I am absolutely lethal and must have a budget and a realistic frame of mind, and that is in seed catalogs and craft stores. I try to be honest with myself, but anytime I read a description like that, it's over. All right, where should this go? My garden planning leaves a lot to be desired, guys. I think what I may do here is just do this in kind of a row down here beside these sunflowers. That was an excessive amount of one kind of squash plant, so hopefully it really is like rays of sunshine. Whoever's doing the marketing for seed companies and writing the descriptions in the seed catalogs and on the packages, I'm like a prime example that it works. Do you ever like hate that in yourself? Like whenever you click on something or you see something and you're like, oh, I'm so being marketed to right now, but it's getting me good. Poetic seed packages, they do it to me every time. All right, let's come put the seeds back in the greenhouse. This looks like a little glowing haven. You can actually see how dark it is outside from in here because the camera's not adjusted to it. See, I come out and it adjusts and it's deceiving. Our family from next door came over and Maya and the kids are playing basketball with them. Ooh, good shot, Ben. All right, you guys want to sign off with me? All right, let's say it. Thanks for hanging out with us today, guys. We bless you. We bless you.
We bless you
until next time.
Okay, bye.